Hi, this is Jacob Nash with JNGL. Today we are looking at 2.3 notes. This is Unit 2, Lesson 4. And this is equations of parallel and perpendicular lines. Those are the symbols for those. Okay, first, these are two equations to know. These ones you already should know because the only way you can take geometry is if you took algebra, and these are ones that you learned. Now, pretty much you actually only need to know one of them, but it depends. After I go over what they do, you'll find out which one is easier for you to know and solve for. This one's probably easier for you to remember, and the one down here, some people may not have learned, but still some people like to use it. So let's try to make an equation based on this point right here. So this is some review. This is the y point. This is the x point. So we can just plug in for what we know. So anyways, the m means slope, which is pretty much the gradient of what is being graphed. And the b is the y-intercept. Yint. That's just what I'll write. Yint. And I'm not very good at writing on this thing. In real life, my handwriting's much better than that, but that's just what I have to do right now. So let's plug it in. We can say y is 4, and then m, well, the slope, that there's not actually enough information here to answer that. Let's just say the slope is 2. So then we plug in 2, and then times x is 0, and then the y-intercept. Well, it doesn't really say what the y-intercept is, but we know that it's 4 because whenever you have a y-intercept, it's where it connects to the y line, and anytime that is, the x always has to be 0. And since the x is 0, that means that the y is 4 for the y-intercept. So in this case, the b and y are the same. So that's what you could say for this one. And then you could just solve. 2 times 0 is 0, plus 4. 4 equals 4? Yes, it does. So that's how you know you did that right. Because you got a true statement. That's true. And then down here, you would do the same thing, except you don't plug in anything for the x and y in this case. You plug it in for the x1, y1. So y minus the y1, which is 4, equals the slope of 2, which is x, and then times x minus 0. And that is what it is. And then you would distribute and solve that for, and since there's two things right here, two variables, you would need to use substitution. But that's all I'm going to say. That's how you set up an equation. Okay. This is just some review. A positive slope means it will go up like that. Negative slope means it will go down like that. Zero slope, it will be horizontal line. And undefined is vertical. And remember, if you have undefined, it is an imaginary thing that really can't be displayed at all. So that's what that is. Okay, here are the rules. So if we go back to standard 2.1, which is our postulates, all these rules that have been happening are postulates because they have their if-then statements. So if lines are parallel, then their slopes are equal. So this is very important to know. I'll star it. And the key words are the ones that are uppercase. Parallel, equal. Slopes are equal, basically. So using that, let's see, what is the slope of line B? That's the blue line. Well, remember, if we have these things right here, that means that it's parallel, like that. And so these are parallel. That means their slope should be equal. If the slope on this one is 7, that means that the slope of line B has to be 7 also because they are parallel. Now, we want to practice. Now, there's something that is not shown on this video, but you may have to use slope form by using the slope to calculate the slope, like the rise over run. But that is on a different video already. I think that is 1.4 or maybe 1.3, but you can go back and see that video if you need help on that. But this is where you need to know those equations. So what is an equation of the line that is parallel to y equals 3x minus 5, negative 3x minus 5, that contains the point negative 1, 8. Okay, so what are we doing here? Well, the first way that we can do it is we first have to know our equation that is y equals mx plus b, mx plus b. And first we'll try to find out everything we know. So we know that if the lines are parallel, our rule knows that the slopes will be equal. And this is the m, negative 3. So that means that we know that the equation that we're trying to find, it will have an m of negative 3. That's what it will have. Sorry about the noise down there. That's just crazy. And then we do not know what the y-intercept is, because this point does not have an x that is 0, so that doesn't mean that it's an 8. The 8 is not what it is. So now we just plug in what we know. So we have 8, plug in the 8 for the y, then we do equals, and then we know the negative 3, that is the m, and then what is the x? The x is the negative 1, and then the y-intercept is actually going to be what we're solving for. So that's what we do. Now we solve as much as we know. 8, and then what is negative 3 times negative 1? Well, negative times a negative is a positive, and that happens to be positive 3, which then we still have plus b. And then from there you could do minus 3, and then we see that b is 5. Well, good. We know b is 5, but that doesn't solve what we're being asked. Now we need to rewrite the equation. We just leave x and y as they are. So we have the y, and it is equal to m, which is negative 3x. And then we do, what is the y-intercept? Which is b. That is plus 5. We just found that out. So this is the answer. Y equals negative 3x plus 5. It does have the same slope, and it just happened to be a coincidence that it's negative 5 and plus 5, but they are going to be parallel because they have the same slope. So that's how we know. Now the way number 2, so you don't have to know both ways. Just pick a way that you think is good. The other way that you could have done it was, I'm not going to write it because that will take a long time, but it is the equation y minus y1. Sorry, you can rewind it to see it, but y minus y1 equals m times, in parentheses, x minus x1. So when we're doing this, you substitute in these two values only at the parts that have the subscript of 1. So the subscript x1 and y1. You leave the y and x that are by themselves. So we do y minus y1, which is 8, and then we do equals, and then m, we know that it has to be the same, so we do negative 3. And y-intercept is not used in this plus 5. That is not used, so you don't need to worry about that. and then x minus x1, which is negative 1. Here's the thing that you have to be careful of. It is minus negative 1. Don't leave it just negative 1. And remember, when you have two minuses, you can draw them together to make a plus. That's what that means. So now, all you have to do is solve like normal. So we can do y minus 8, and then you distribute, which is negative 3x, and then we have negative 3 minus 1 is minus 3, and then, you add 3 to both sides. That would, you add 8 to both sides. And then we have y equals negative 3x, and then negative 3 plus 8 is, gosh, this is not working. Something is off. Plus 5. Okay, that is very ran together, but we see that it is the same thing for both ways that we did. So there you go. That is what that is. Alright, last thing is the rules of perpendicular lines. That's the upside down T. That's what that means. Okay, so perpendicular lines have slopes that are the opposite radical. Perpendicular lines, slopes that are opposite reciprocal. So what that means is if you had 1/2, the opposite reciprocal means that you flip over the numbers and you make either the plus that's in this one a minus, or if it was negative 1/2, then you would make it positive 2/1, which we know that 2/1 is just 2. So that's what the opposite reciprocal means. So for this case, I'm not going to write down all the steps, but you pretty much would solve just the same way as in this example. But I will tell you what the answers would be. But what you would do for this one, you would do the same thing where you plug in, if you're doing the way we use the y equals mx plus b, we do that. Okay, that's not what I want. Mx plus b, and you plug in all the values except for b, because you know that the slope is going to be 1/5, and then we know that we can plug in the x and y for that, and you would solve for b. And when you do that, you find out that let's see here, what do I have on this paper? B equals 71. That's kind of a weird thing. 71. That is not a very good 71. 71. There. This thing is not good. I wish I could have a touchscreen computer, but that's not what it is. That would be a lot easier than clicking around. And then when you do the full equation, it is y equals. Gosh. And then we already knew that what the slope will not be equal, but it will be the opposite reciprocal. What is the opposite reciprocal? Well, we basically just do stay, change, flip. That I could have just said it that way. Stay, you just keep it like that, and then you change the sign. The sign is changed to a negative, and then you flip the fraction 5/1, which is just negative 5. So y equals negative 5x plus 71. And then if you do the way 2, remember we have the y minus y1 equals m times, in parentheses, x minus x1. That's the equation, and then you plug in for m, y1, and x1, and then you solve until you find, and you get y by itself to where you find the same thing that you got in this one. So that is 2 ways you can do it. The one that has a lot more memorizing is way 2. The one that has a lot more writing is way 1. So you can just pick the one that you think you like better. Thanks for watching. That's it. Stay tuned, and I think this is the last standard. I don't remember if there's a 2.4 or not, but I will make a review for this part, and I already did for 2.1 to 2.2. So, thanks for watching.